Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Hendo-One Gallery of Fine Art. Uh, I'm going to be your docent this evening. My name is David Day, and our presentation this evening in our gallery is titled Closer Looks by Jim Pierson. And we'll talk about that a little bit later here when we open the doors. In consideration of all guests, please mute your microphone until you have a question or a comment for the artist. Also, if you get a chance, please visit hendo1.com or ddayicmart.com and subscribe there for future events. And we give a lot of information on upcoming events on a monthly basis there. But let's go ahead and go in and open the doors and see what we've got going on here this evening at this presentation. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Hendo-One before we get started. Hendo-One is a gallery that exists to showcase emerging and established artists and to support dissemination of their work worldwide. And unlike brick and mortar galleries, Hendo-One charges no commission with 100% of sales going directly to the artist. This allows the artist to bring their work directly to you without going through a commission broker. As you take part in today's tour, please ask questions of the artists and deal directly with them on purchases using the contact information that we will provide here. Our featured artist this evening is Jim Pierson. Jim is a retired pharmaceutical manufacturing scientist who became interested in photography in college in developing his black and white images in his college's darkroom, something which we don't see too much of today with the analog development. Early in his work life, he quit his job and traveled across the U.S. for 5 months to develop his photography skills. With the advent of digital photography and digital post-processing, Jim has renewed his passion for this art form and has had several images selected for juried exhibitions and had works displayed in several galleries across the country. Jim and his wife Nancy reside in Flat Rock, North Carolina. And before we go into introducing Jim and getting information on Jim's artist statement and how he developed Closer Looks, I want to comment that Jim is a member of our local camera club here in Hendersonville. And we have a little show that we do that Jim coordinates on a monthly basis. It's called Give Me Your Best Shot, and we have different themes that we shoot to. And maybe Jim doesn't know this, but we have a lot of fun guessing whose photographs are going to be the ones that come up and are being presented, and we have a good time trying to guess which ones are Jim's because they're always so fascinating. But anyhow, let's go ahead and introduce Jim here and let him tell you about Closer Looks and how he developed that. So Jim, for a few minutes here, I'm going to turn it over to you for whatever comments you have.
All righty, thanks, David. My statement here is, in my photography, I seek to reveal elements of a landscape, and I want to emphasize the elements as opposed to the full landscape structure or object. Excuse me. That offers compelling compositions in their own right through the interplay of lines, shapes, and colors, as opposed to taking the full shot of a landscape or structure object, as a lot of people do. I try and zero in on the parts of it that I find interesting. A lot of people take the full landscape or waterfall or whatever, but it doesn't interest me as much. I try and find the interesting things around me day to day. I try to isolate the intended subject by removing context and extraneous details, usually through moving in close, cropping or zooming in on an object in order to create both a satisfying and powerful visual image. I find that this approach of looking, excuse me, I got a cold, I'm losing my voice. Looking closer reveals a beauty that transcends time, place, and subject and invites the viewer to experience it personally. I tend to be more of a telephoto lens shooter than a wide angle lens shooter.
Oh, that's interesting, Jim. So you're really getting back from your subject and then moving in on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's very interesting. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the foyer here. And in the foyer, we've got a really interesting photograph. And Jim, I first saw this photograph. It was in a competition that we had down in South Carolina last month, and a lot of people were standing around this looking at it. And I was kind of amused with what was going on there because absolutely nobody had any idea what it was, but it was so beautiful with the lines and the shapes and the texture going on in it. And you call this one Aftermath, and I'd like you to explain what this image is of and how you made it.
Okay, this was taken in Eastern North Carolina. We're visiting my son and his wife and kid. And we're driving down the street, and I saw that a building had burned to the ground, and the tin roof on top was, as you can see, all the color and the lines and shapes here made an interesting um, composition. So I pulled over the car, and my son's going, "What are we stopping for?" So I jump out with my camera and said, "I got to get a picture of this." So we walked around, Nancy and I walked around and shot pictures of this. And I think I got a good kind of overall shot of the tin kind of laying over the burned embers of the building itself.
So this roof was down on the ground when you shot it.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
probably at the most 2 or 3 feet above the ground. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that is so impressive. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the first gallery now, and we've got some really interesting photographs here in the first gallery, and we're going to ask you some questions about these as we move on through. And I want to take a really good look at this first one, which you call Ascent. And tell me about where you shot this one, Jim. Were you up above the staircase shooting down?
Yes. Yeah. This was in Budapest. Our Airbnb, our way up to our apartment was an old building. Um, I originally took the shot kind of typical of the concentric rings looking down, and it's just the series of rings, which I didn't find it real interesting. We weren't that high up, so there weren't a lot of layers. So I kind of moved over to take this shot where you get more of an interesting shot with, curves and angles coming intersecting with the other parts and kind of making a neat composition. I originally called it Descent because I was looking down at the stairs going down, but that just didn't feel right. I was looking down at stairs coming up to me, so I changed the name to Ascent.
So how far were you leaning over the railing when you did
Uh,
these?
a little ways probably.
That is great. That is great. Okay, and then we have Danube roofs, and I just love the detail in this one and how the colors contrast, and it's just a beautiful image as far as I'm concerned. Can you tell us a little bit about this one?
Yeah, that was on a trip over in Europe. We were in Czech Republic, and we came to this site that was kind of an overlook, and there were a lot of people there taking pictures, and I'm sure a lot of them were taking wide angles to get this. I mean, there was a vast sea of these roofs um, in the image. And with so many roofs like that, it almost became a picture of a texture rather than individual buildings. So I kind of zoomed in on one section that I found to be interesting. And so I took the shot. I just love the angles that coming together from all sides and the colors. You look how neat and clean everything is there. It's pretty amazing. I also found that in looking at this, it looked like, they're so close together. It was almost like it was children's block set, and it just got all pushed together, mishmash. And after I had worked on this for a little while, it occurred to me that it doesn't look like there's possibly any roads in there. It's just all buildings against buildings against buildings.
Yeah, yeah, that is really interesting, and I love the palette there that goes from the bright yellows to the very dark reds. That's really fantastic. I'd like to mention too to everybody that Jim's email and website is at jimpiersonphotography.com. And if you get a chance, jump in there and take a look at a lot of his images that we aren't showing here today, because this is just a very small sample of what Jim has available to offer. And if you want to email him, it's at jimpiersonphotography@gmail.com. And then we have this next one, which to me is a little bit spooky.
Yeah, right.
Forgotten Reflections. And where did you take this one at? Was this also in Europe?
No, this was in the eastern part of North Carolina, that same trip from the other picture. It was in an old furniture store, and the buildings were quite old, but the first two floors were kind of kept up and painted, but it was kind of not fancy at all. And this was up in the attic. There were a couple odd pieces here and there. And I just found the juxtaposition of the ornate gilt mirror framed on this crumbling wall, just kind of haphazardly set on there, kind of made for an interesting subject.
Yeah, yeah. Is that a ladder in the mirror?
Yeah, yeah, they had some of their tools up there, and there's a back behind in the dark space there in the image is really a freight elevator to get furniture up and down.
Okay, just I can just imagine somebody taking that mirror and looking at it and scratching their head and going, "Where can we put this?"
Right,
It's not something that you would normally see in North Carolina.
right, right.
Yeah.
I get the feeling it's on its last post here.
Could well be. Uh, okay. Then we got the other side of this gallery here, which is very, very, almost very different from the last one. And we want to look at this one for a minute and focus in on it. Beach fence. And when I was looking at this the other day, I did not notice. I just thought that it was a fence and the shadows of the fence, but you can actually see the waves back behind that.
That's actually sand.
Oh,
Sand
that's all
dune.
sand.
Yeah.
Did you plan this photograph in advance, or did you have to wait for the sun, or is it just something you saw when
Nope,
they?
it was just like this when I shot it, which
Okay,
kind of typical of how I do it. I pretty much shoot what I see when I see it, and I don't do a lot of adjusting things or planning.
okay, okay. Yeah, beautiful shot. And then this next one here, this is one of my favorites. And it's titled White Wall. The title's just a little bit of a giveaway on what it is. And also, if I'd like to draw everybody's attention who is here to the dark area. And if you look, you can see in there the tire on this car. So, Jim, tell me about this one and where you got this.
This was in Bilbao, Spain, at the Guggenheim Museum, and they had an exhibit on old cars and very kind of creative design cars. And I just liked the kind of composition of all these curved lines coming together and kind of removing context that, you eventually figure out what it is, but it's not really important to appreciate, just the almost abstractness of it.
Right, right. The beautiful minimalism shot too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah, very good. And then we have one that totally baffled me until you explained it the other day, called Steel Waves, and maybe you could talk about that one a little bit.
That is from a sculpture which is on grounds for sculpture up outside Princeton, New Jersey. And they have a lot of these large scale sculptures throughout this park. And this one I've turned 90 degrees. Originally, as it's in the ground, it's vertical, but I like the curved lines and it making it looks like waves. And I just thought it made a good composition of you've got the flowing movement of the design, but it's made with a cold structure medium.
Yeah. Yeah. Jim, I know that in your professional career before you retired, you were a pharmaceutical scientist. Could you tell me a little bit about when you really picked up photography in earnest, how it changed the way you look at things? I would imagine that you spend a lot of time just concentrating on everything you see and just focusing in on the minutia of it.
Yeah. I was pretty much into it when I got out of college, but then getting married and having kids, and it's you sort of evolve into taking snapshots.
Yeah.
And as the digital age kind of came on, I kind of started to get into it again. I was kind of amazed with the post-processing capabilities. And so I probably I retired in 2014, but I probably back in 2010 or 2012, I
Uh-huh.
started getting back into it. But once I retired, I really took it on strong and really got into it.
Yeah. What post-processing software are you using?
I use mostly, excuse me, Lightroom, some Photoshop when I want some kind of a technique that don't do in landscape. And then sometimes I add a look with Topaz Studio 2.
Oh, okay. 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 Now this next one, we're at the halfway mark here in the exhibit today. This next one is really one of my favorites, and that's why I put it in the office because I spent, oh gosh, I'd say close to a half an hour just going through this and looking at it and saying, where is the creature in there? Because there's got to be something hiding in there.
Right, yeah.
And also, where tell everybody about where this was at because I had the totally wrong concept of it. But when you told me where you took this photograph, all of a sudden I go, ah, that makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, this was taken up in, can't remember if it was on the Jersey side or the Pennsylvania side of the Delaware River up around Bucks County and that area. And it was just a stream with all these roots that had been originally sunk into dirt and was kind of holding the tree up. But over time, the dirt gets washed away. I always say, the water always wins. My father had to fought to put a pond in when we were kids, and storms would come along and change it and carry parts away, and you're never going to beat the water. So I found these roots to be so interesting um, as I saw them, and I have kind of darkened around the edges to highlight the roots themselves. Kind of shows the impermanence of things. Originally this was a bank along a stream, and now it's just a bunch of roots. But as things change, some things are lost, but then again, new things are, created as time goes on.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. That's very cool. Okay, and then we'll step into the next gallery, and here we've got something that again is very focused and very focused on just the elements that make the scene, but very different from what you've done before. And let's take a look at those. The elegant arches. I was immediately drawn to the detail in this one, and right away I said, "This can't be from the United States. This has got to be from
Right.
somewhere in Europe because I just don't do that sort of thing here in the United States."
Yeah. This was a cathedral in Budapest again. Um, it was a very amazing cathedral with all the structures, and the painting was incredible. And every part of it was painted in some way. And so yeah, I could take a picture of the cathedral itself and it would be beautiful, but you don't really see the beauty of the details in that, which is what I tend to want to reveal. And so I just took a small area with a few of the arches, but it highlights how the lines move, how the colors are revealed here, and it just really like that shot.
Yeah, how high up off the floor were these was this were these ceilings?
They were probably 30 feet, I would say.
Wow. And somebody had to sit up there on a scaffold and do all that painting.
You're right.
Wow. Then we have this one too. This is a fun shot right here. Kitchen shadows.
Yeah, that's a kitchen cabinet, actually, not a door.
Yeah.
I just found the shadows to be, almost the main element of the photograph. It sort of carries more weight than the simple lines and the doorknob. Um, but this is the kind of thing I like to find. I don't plan these kinds of things. I was in the kitchen probably making a sandwich or something, and I just noticed this doorknob or cabinet knob and the shadow. And so I kind of ran and got the camera and took a shot of that.
Very good. Very good. Now this next one, Jim, I'm kind of glad that you never showed it the give me your best shot because it would have ruined my near perfect record on guessing that it was your photograph. And this one, and I was absolutely convinced that this was a multiple exposure shot, and you had somehow put it together.
No, it is a one shot. It's of a building in Barcelona, Spain. And we were kind of on our way to one of the Gaudi buildings, but I kind of looked up in this and just fascinated by it. Sort of has a almost a free flowing skin on it, and as it's juxtaposed to the kind of solidity of the structure behind it, which is where the blocks are making up the apartments. And call it undertow because I can almost see the flowing light stuff as the surf on top of the wave, and underneath is where all the power and weight of the water is, and um, kind of made me think of that.
Did somebody have a question there for Jim? No? Okay, we'll move on to the next one, which again is very, very different. Yeah, I
This,
call it feather and wood.
yeah, this is one that I did arrange. I found that feather lying in the road and liked the lines of it, how it's kind of beat up. And then I put it on top. I laid a old barn board that I had on the table, and I set the feather on top of that. And I just like the interplay of the two. You got the flowing feather and the kind of solid, old, scratchy wood. And yet they're both kind of creations of nature that have kind of outlived their usefulness. And so I just did a combination of the two.
Yeah, very good. Okay, and then we'll pop into the next gallery here, and again, we've got some really bold images. I think these images are really, really bold, and we'll look at this first one here, and then we're going to spend some time on the second one.
This is called Through and Through. It was a window in an old historic building. Nancy and I were some historic site, and this was a stone building with the kind of white grout around and made kind of nice patterns, but it just didn't kind of make it for me. So I kind of, in post processing, really cropped this part of it to just have a collection of colored blocks. You got the blacks and the greens and the reds, and you kind of notice that the outside is kind of sharper. Going inside, it's a little bit distorted, and then through the second panes going outside to the greenery out there, it's completely distorted. And that's due to the kind of old wavy glass in there.
Very good, very good. Now, for the one, and Jim, I was looking on the web for the meaning of tour, the word tour, and I couldn't find anything in there that related on the web that related to this. So this still remains an enigma to me.
Okay.
And
This one, okay, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
This was taken in Budapest, same trip we were on. Just walking down the streets, and I just was fascinated by the different layers, and it's almost like an archaeological dig, sort of. When this was new, it was all plastered, nice and smooth and even and painted. And then slowly over time, the paint started peeling off here. And another spot, some of the surface spackling or whatever, surface fell off, exposing some older covering. And then you even got farther down into the brick and kind of the under structure of the building itself. And, when this building was new, it could have been anywhere at all. But due to human contact and influence and just living with it, kind of not reduces it, but changes it to a unique, interesting spot that's unlike any other spot anywhere else. It's got its own characteristics.
Yeah, very good. I just it just amazes me that you can just be walking down a street and seeing this. And I know that your wife Nancy is on here. Nancy, I had a question for you. Uh, do you ever wonder why Jim is suddenly stopping and saying, "I've got to do something"?
I think you're muted, Nance.
Yeah, you're on muted now, Nancy.
So I'll come answer with Jim. No, I never wonder at all, David. I just know he's behind me taking pictures of something. And I liked what you said about this one being the tour, being an enigma, because I think that's what that picture says to me. We sort of assumed it said tour, but it doesn't really. It's sort of an enigma
Yeah.
too. I thought that was a good description, but no, I never wonder because I know what he's doing.
And I do it a lot.
Okay. Okay. I was just curious. Sometimes it's just a matter of, well, come on, Jim, let's go. Got to move on.
No, I know that just waiting is, but when we're with other people, I have learned to just keep one eye on the group and one eye on Jim. So that's all, just to make sure.
Okay. Thank you.
And this is really how I take most of my pictures. It's just walking around and seeing something and taking a picture of it. I really have developed, my interest in looking at everything and trying to see these details everywhere that are beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're out there.
This is great. And then we have the next one here, which is the red curtain.
Yeah, that was taken in Lisbon, Portugal. We were at a cafe, kind of tired from walking around, and this building was all along there, and they had different windows all along. Some of them had bicycles up on the balcony, some had laundry hanging, some had, dead plants there and everything. But this one kind of stood out to me with the red curtain and the two chairs on the balcony. This balcony was reserved for viewing out on the world. You can sort of see inside the building that it's not well furnished. They've got a bare mattress that's laying on the floor. But this lush curtain is kind of the separation between their box seats on the world and then their normal everyday life.
Yeah. Wow. That really makes you think. Yeah. Very good. Okay, and now we move into the next gallery. And here's one that everybody should recognize. The Tour Eiffel.
Yes, that's kind of my take on the Eiffel Tower. Of course, I'm sure I shot some of the whole tower, but that's just a picture of the Eiffel Tower. I just zeroed in on one section with a zoom lens and just looked at all the different structural elements in there. You got the beams with cross braces. You've got arches with curves and curlicues and all kinds of things in there that make it up. Plus, you have words in there. And I think it makes an interesting shot. I took this into post-processing and kind of added a antique kind of look to it, you know, kind of in recognition of its age and enduring beauty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll be back there in a few weeks. So
Oh, great. Have you been to the top of the tower?
I don't think so. We went part way last time. I think we got halfway, and that's where we stopped, I believe.
Ah, you got to go to the top of the tower. It's incredible.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. And then we have this next one, which is Radiance, and I had totally misguessed this one when you told me what it was the other day. Wow, I was way off on that one.
Easy to do. This is just a light sconce in a pub in Ireland. It was Kilkenny. We went to the pub, and I noticed this on the wall while we were sitting there eating, and I thought, okay, I got to get a picture of that as we leave. And I saw, you know, it was up on the wall with all these other knickknacks and little mirrors and pictures and everything. And people walked by and didn't even take a second look at it. But to me, it was just fascinating. So I got this picture. And again, I walked up close to get this, and you kind of lose your context in not knowing what the heck it is. And that's what it is.
Okay, just one moment here. And then we're going to move on to the next one that we both had a question about. The oak leaf hydrangea, which seems to be all over North Carolina.
Right. Yeah, this is in our front yard. And I just really wanted to focus on the leaf. I have flowers in there, but they're kind of play a minor part in the picture. I love the greens with the reds and the shapes and the cutouts. And I purposely didn't show the whole leaf because I didn't want it to be a picture of a leaf. I want it to be a composition of these shapes and lines and colors. And that's what I came up with.
And we still don't know when the appropriate time the time of the year is to prune a hydrangea, do we?
Right. I think it's supposed to be after the flower, but the flowers last until, you know, like October, November, kind of.
Yeah, and I've been
Fading, but
looking at it, and they talk about, things like soil and drainage, pruning them at specific places in the plant and everything, but I can't find anything about the time of year.
right.
Hmm. Okay, if anybody knows, chime in. It's a big issue for us. And now we come to the end of the exhibit, and this next photograph, I hope everybody appreciates this as much as I do. This one just blows me away. Three aspens. Jim, tell us about this one.
All right.
This is gorgeous.
Somebody have a comment? I took this in Utah, Cedar Breaks National Monument, and it was just part of a larger landscape picture. But these three aspen here caught my eye, and I wanted that to be the subject of the picture. So again, I had to use a zoom lens to kind of zoom in and capture these. And then in post-processing, I kind of darkened the surroundings so these things really popped.
Wouldn't this look absolutely gorgeous if you had a stairwell that went, that was shaped so that it went from the upper floor to the bottom floor without interruption? You could put it on there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I have this one over my fireplace.
Oh, great. Yeah, good place for it too. Okay, that brings us to the end of the tour. Does anybody have any questions of Jim before we exit the building? Wait, I've got it. Somebody was chatting here. Nancy said it looks nice on a stone fireplace too. Yeah, Okay. Does anybody else have anything? Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for visiting the Hendo-One gallery this evening, and the next show will start at 8 p.m. sharp. So if you checked in late and want to come back, please do so. We're going to stop right now, and then we will start it back up at about 5 minutes to 8. So we'll see everybody then. Thank you so much.